Happy May 23rd, everybody. It's the May 23rd edition of Our Town here on 94.9 and 99.1 The River. My name is Darren Swinson. Our Town, as always, brought to you by Decorah Bank and Trust. The two-guest program on the program this morning. A little later on in the program, we'll talk to Rob Gross. He is with the Minnesota State Veterans Cemetery in Preston. They will have their Memorial Day weekend event coming up on Sunday, and we'll talk a lot of things related to Memorial Day weekend. And Rob, always a great guest. He will join us later on in the program. Our first guest this morning is Decorah School Superintendent Tim Cronin. A lot of things to cover with him. He will bat leadoff on Our Town. It's brought to you by Decorah Bank and Trust, and you're listening to it on 94.9 and 99.1 The River. Having a chat this morning with Decorah School Superintendent Tim Cronin. Last week, Tim, your school board had a special meeting on Thursday. First of all, you've come to an agreement with the Decorah Education Association. Give us the fine details of the agreement on a master contract for next year.
Yeah, so the master contract, that it was a little complex this year with the state minimums being added in. So there's a minimum teacher salary of $47,500. And there's also a veteran teacher salary. So if you've been a teacher for 12 years, you have a minimum salary of $60,000. So that added a few wrinkles into negotiations, because usually a large part of what we're doing is negotiating just an amount of money that we put on the base salary. Teacher salaries, there's a salary schedule that has increments for years taught, and then graduate credits past a bachelor's degree. So instead of just adding money on the salary schedule and being done, we had a little bit more complex process. And quite frankly, we worked with our association on understanding how the state did it. So part of that process included reaching out to the state and getting the actual calculations for Decorah. They pulled our data off of something called fall bed staff. And so we could kind of see about why they allocated certain amounts of money, because they weren't quite exactly adding up. And so it was just kind of an interesting learning process. And I think it kind of represented how both sides wanted to come to the table and do the right thing and share information. So at the end of the day, we guaranteed all the teacher minimums. We put $700 on our teacher base. We modified a little bit of the language. We're going to officially write in where we change President's Day as a holiday to the day after Thanksgiving. That's going to just clean up some bookkeeping stuff for us. We're going to continue to meet with our teacher retention committee this summer. We did a lot of things through that last summer, and there was an interest to continue going for this summer. So a long way to say, yeah, it was a nice settlement. I think we calculated it out at 4.33%, which is a higher settlement than we've had in the past, but that's not the worst thing in the world, because teachers are very important to running a school district, obviously.
And with the additional money that raised the first-year teacher salaries and raised the minimum salary of the teachers with the vast amount of experience, as you mentioned, did that has that created a lot of kind of maybe later agreements with districts around the area or around the state as compared to previous years?
Well, there's probably two factors. I think the big factor is we didn't have SSA, state supplemental amount, until, it came late this year. I want to say it was late March. And it's hard to bargain until you know what you're getting for new money. The state will, you'll have your budget amount, and then the state says, okay, since we're funding at 2.5% and your enrollment is this, your state funding will be X amount of dollars. It's always, districts tend to not start bargaining until they know what their SSA amount percentage is, so they can calculate their new money. And then backing up, the state did fund the teacher minimum, so we had two numbers. We had the new money amount and we had the TSS amount. which was the minimum teacher salary amount came to us in teacher salary supplement money. So that was one factor, was just kind of the late setting of SSA. And then the other part was we just made a commitment to make sure we understood what we were doing. So we probably took a little bit more time here, understanding those teacher minimums and for any teacher, and then the veteran minimum. So yeah, we would have been liked to done in April, but we were happy to get it done when we did. And I should say, probably one of the other things, we did meet to understand this, but one of the other things was the teachers representing the Decorah Education Association are very involved as coaches. So we would look to schedule, you usually need about 3 or 4 hours of time. And I would say, what looks good? And they would say, well, I'm free like, Monday after 7, Tuesday at 8. And so we literally, we had a pre-negotiations meeting on, it was senior awards night. And I naively said, well, I can be done at 8:30. And I think I said I was going to be done at 8, and I think I was done at 9:15. So I just texted him and said, hey, we'll start when I'm done. But one of the official negotiations started. We held that started at Monday night at 8:15 after the board meeting that started at 5:30. And part of that was the DEA reps were coaching baseball until about 7:45. So just represent that people did a lot of stuff to get it done and put in some hours well past their regular workday. So we appreciate the DEA for doing that.
As we have talked about, the district is on pace to have a facilities vote this November for a new elementary school. And from what I understand, there will be another district related vote coming up in September. Clarify the difference between the two.
Absolutely. So it's one of the things that as a district, we have the SAVE. It started out as silo, but it was the state penny that gets collected, and school districts are allowed to use it for infrastructure, for buses and buildings, and I guess anything that you think of as not instructional. So it's not, you don't use it to pay for people or for materials. You use it to pay for things like a building or a bus. Anyway, with the SAVE, and I think the acronym is like Secured Advanced Vision for Education, perhaps. But the SAVE fund, we need to update our revenue purpose statement. So we're going to have a vote in September to update our revenue purpose statement to make sure that that money that comes in can be used here in Decorah. And if not, it would expire in 2031. That doesn't mean that the penny would stop being collected. That would just mean that Decorah School District couldn't use it. And at the same time that we update our revenue purpose statement, then we extend the length of it. So we'll extend it to end from 2031 to 2051. So that's not part of the facilities committee, but it's something that we would have to do anyway. So it's a good thing to get out there. It helps us with our planning to make sure that as we're planning a facility and we're looking at the costs, that we know we can have that saved for, another 20 years.
And related to the saved dollars, does this mean perhaps you're going to borrow against future saved dollars for the cost of the elementary school project? Or is this a case of making sure that there's money there for other projects outside of the elementary school project?
Well, for sure, it's the latter, but it's potentially also the former. We may do a general obligation bond with a combination of a SAVE and or PEPL. You can borrow. General obligation bond is that referendum that we have to vote. We have to get 60% plus one person. It's an impact on your taxes. Obviously, we're retiring one debt, so we'd like to replace it and have minimal to no impact on taxes. But the other thing that districts can do is borrow against PEPL and SAVE, like an anticipated revenue bond. And those very well may be in play for our project, as I think some people who did the survey questioned how we got the number of $30 to $38 million for a new elementary school. And unfortunately, construction costs have gone up dramatically. One of the things, one of the folks on our facilities committee, Steve Slesser from WinMed, indicated that their cost per square foot was about $450. So just understanding that the longer it takes us to get a bond out there, the cost is not going to come down. The cost is only going to go up. So to your initial question, it's entirely possible that we'll borrow against save, which of course we can't do until, or we increase our capacity greatly by passing extending that 20 years. I think right now we could borrow about $2 million against the save, and if it's extended 20 more years, it's 7.5 million.
And when will this revenue purpose election take place?
So that's I think the second Tuesday in September. I actually don't have an official date on that, but it will be a September election.
Okay.
So we've got with the board resolution at the last meeting, our paperwork went to the county auditor, so that should be written up as a ballot and ready to go for the September election.
And related to the facilities issue itself, where is that progress at as you put together the entire plan?
Yeah, so the Elementary Facilities Committee has had a couple meetings where we've looked at our ability to borrow. We've looked at some of we were able to look at the survey results that folks gave us. We've looked at some layouts of how we might configure the Hively Island area and fit everything in that we want to have in. We're meeting, we meet on the last Wednesday of the month, so we've got a meeting coming up, and our agenda there is to continue to look at different site plans and then to start making decisions on recommendations that we as a facility committee will make to the board with regards to scope and size of the project. And, obviously, if we're going to recommend something that's beyond our GO borrowing capacity, then we might put in there, hey, we recommend that the board, build this facility and use these funding sources or access these funding sources. Obviously, the committee makes recommendations to the board, and then the board has to make the ultimate final decision. So we've got some discussions coming up on, there's a certain size that you'd want to have for an adequate elementary school. And then when we see the price tag on that, we're gonna have to make a decision on what our recommendation to the board will be. But that's coming up there. I imagine that committee is going to meet a couple more times and probably in June to kind of finalize so they can get a recommendation to the board, because with the new federal law, we have to, the board would have to have a resolution passed by August to get on the November election cycle.
So are we talking July board meeting? Are we talking June board meeting? Maybe a special meeting in June for the board to make the decision on moving forward officially?
I think the official meeting will probably be in July. There might be I imagine there'll be some discussion and very possibly a special June or early July board meeting as well.
One topic we've touched on a little bit, and we probably haven't gone as in depth as we've been needed to during our conversation, is the changes that were passed by the Iowa legislature regarding to the area education associations. I guess breaking this issue down, how will this affect the Decorah School District? What will you have to do differently beginning next school year based on the changes that would pass the legislature this year?
So we're operating with, so the state, the funding for the AAs has always gone to the local districts, and it's kind of flowed through, and it's just kind of been an automatic, whatever amount of money we get, we send on to the AAA. So this year we had the opportunity to keep up to 60% of those funds. We kind of have a verbal agreement with the AA that will flow through all of that money for another year. Now, we also have had other talks with the AA about what 100% of services look like, what 80% of the services looks like. So we're still kind of finalizing that. Obviously, one of the other things that has happened is there's folks are anxious at the AAs and looking at different jobs. And so one of the things that's happening is we're not really sure we know the AA will deliver services. We're just not sure what it'll look like. So there's just a lot of uncertainty there, I guess is the best way to put it. We're planning on utilizing the AA. I know a couple folks have retired. We're probably close to retirement anyway. So it'll be different folks at the AA. and then understanding how that's going to work with, there's going to be a regional special ed director that's not going to be with the AA, but will be with the Department of Ed. So I'm not giving you a very good answer, but it's the best answer I can because it's kind of a vague situation about how all these pieces will fit together. But we're looking forward to, the AEA we just had a meeting last week where we just kind of talked about what the services might look like at each district. I think in general, these changes will impact small rural districts a lot more than anybody, but we're a rural district, so it will impact us a little bit and how services change for us. What that is exactly, I can't tell you until I get into it.
So wait and see on that end of things. So basically, this was passed jumping in with 2 feet and perhaps without a life preserver on.
I think I think what I'll say is it's some changes that we're still grasping and understanding of how it will work out. And I don't I again it'll be an interesting challenge.
I shouldn't ask leading questions, but you
Yeah, I know.
handled it very well. But another issue that's gotten a little bit of attention that passed the legislature, the issue of school security. It's been on everybody's mind for now going on pretty much 3 decades, really since Columbine in 1995. And of course, the state of Iowa, unfortunately, had to deal with it directly with the tragic situation down at Perry High School earlier this year. The Iowa legislature passed legislation that allowed teachers to be armed. What is your thoughts on this?
Well, I mean, honestly, I don't know if I've seen anywhere. I don't know if I know anybody who is advocating for that, or if I've seen that that's an effective deterrent. That being said, right now, I think some people saw that law pass and said, "Oh, teachers will carry their guns to school the next day," and that's certainly not the case. You have to have a local board policy that allows it, and no school board is going to pass a policy at this point in time, because if you do, the insurance carrier for all the school districts in the state is EMC, and they will not cover a school that arms teachers. So I think I said to the newspaper, I said, this is kind of a Decorah News. I said, this is a moot point until that changes. And if you recall, there were 2 school districts in maybe northwestern Iowa. One of them might have been Spirit Lake, that passed this last year at a board level. And within, a month, they had to rescind their motion because they were going to get dropped by their insurance. And the last time I checked, EMC has not changed their policy on that. So yeah, what do I think? I think until we're not going to even entertain a discussion if we can't get insurance, because we have to maintain our insurance.
Another cart before the horse situation as I continue to ask leading questions.
Sure. You're doing 2 for 2 today, Darren. You're doing great.
All right. Anything new on the mediation application related to related to a conference affiliation?
The district has formally filed the mediation regarding the exemption from the Upper Iowa Conference. And when you do that, you get a response that says, "Hey, your email's been received," and then you just sit and wait. And so now we're officially in the sit and wait part. I know there's a couple other mediations going on. Charles City's filed theirs. I also believe Waverly Shell Rock has filed theirs for those respective conferences. So that'll be a matter of the State Department of Ed scheduling a mediation with representatives from the Boys Association and the Girls Union. And when that will happen, I don't know, and I don't get to control.
All right. As the school year ends here in a few days, anything else you want to pass on to the public, as long as you got the forum here this morning?
Boy, I just probably if you get this reminder that tomorrow is a regular school day and Friday is a 1:30 dismissal, and yeah, we're finishing strong. Looking forward to a good summer here in Northeast Iowa. So I don't have anything else to add today.
All right, Tim, appreciate the time and the knowledge as always. Thank you.
You bet.
Tim Cronin, Decorah School Superintendent. It is Memorial Day weekend, and as usual, we talk to our friend Rob Gross. He is with the Minnesota State Veterans Cemetery in Preston. Their annual Memorial Day event will come up this Sunday. And Rob, this may seem like the most obvious question ever, but how important and how special is this time of year for the folks that you deal with on a professional basis?
Well, I mean, I guess the best way to describe it for us is this is our Super Bowl. This is our, big event, our big gathering. Every day out here is a day of honor. Every day out here is a day that we extend the highest respect to our fallen comrades and their family members. But this just takes it up another step. It's the event that we plan for months and months and prep for every day leading up to this. So it's a big, important memorial event, not just here, but across the entire region, in our private communities and in each of our respective towns.
And the event coming up on Sunday, I know we've discussed this in the past, but what is the reason you hold it on Sunday as compared to Memorial Day?
That's a great question. The reason we decided to do it many years ago on Sunday was out of respect for our communities. Everybody in the areas attend, or many people attend their local event, whether it be in Decorah, on Memorial Day, or in Preston, or in Spring Grove, or in Cresco. And many of our partners are veterans groups from those respective communities and families from those communities. We do not want them to decide or prioritize or have to triage which location they go to. We don't want them to decide, do I go to my community event in Decorah, or do I go to the State Veterans Cemetery event up in Preston? So out of respect for the veterans groups, the community, the families, we have opted to move it to that Sunday every year, allowing families, community, church groups, bands, schools, etc., to participate in both of them if they so choose. So it's a great way of doing that. And I think it allows us, again, to both respect and honor our location, but those community events. And in truth, I partake in those community events on Monday. So it allows me the opportunity to go out to those locations. I'll be going out to Mabel and Canton this year for events. My daughter's in the band and she'll be playing at both of those. So it allows us to honor in our communities as well.
And tell us about the specifics of your event coming up on Sunday. What's the schedule? What will all be involved with your event?
So our event begins officially at 1:30. We have the 34th ID. They're called the M-Sax Teens. It's a saxophone band that will actually be coming up and playing a small concert before the event. And then at 2:00, the formal program will begin. So at 2:00, it'll be the national anthem. We have a talented young lady from the Spring Grove area, Miss Ella Wennis, is going to be singing for us this year. We're going to have the veterans home residents that are able to attend here present at that, and they're going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance as a group this year. And a keynote speaker. We're very fortunate to have our Commissioner of Veteran Affairs, a gentleman that I'm fortunate enough to call a friend, that we've served many years together, and he's a down-to-earth, meat and potatoes type person, but his entire career has been built on military veterans and taking care of veterans. So our commissioner is going to be joining us as a keynote, and then we'll have a Vietnam Veterans Rifle Squad that will be participating this year from the Rochester area that will be performing taps and the rifle salute. So it's a gathering. Again, music starts at 1:30, program at 2, typically done by 2:45 in the afternoon. And that allows families to still partake in the remainder of the day. And seems to be the sweet spot out here for eagles flying overhead and sunshine and clouds and Mother Nature smiling on us. So that's just the window we keep it in. So.
And will this event be held rain or shine?
It will be. In the event of severe inclement weather like what we had last night or recently here in the area, obviously at that point we will cancel the formal presentation. We'll have a smaller one that we will put on, and then we would have that available for families to stream, through YouTube, through Facebook, social media, other venues, options like that. But if it is Mother Nature just deciding to sprinkle on us a little bit, we always tell people we're prepared for that out here. People can bring umbrellas and raincoats and ponchos, but it just means that we made Mother Nature shed a tear. The service was emotional and got to her too, and we'll embrace it and move forward. The old military mindset of if it's not raining, we're not training. We kind of carry on with that out here the best that we can. So,
and how important is it for families to get together that are missing their loved ones that served our country? And I'd imagine as time goes by, there's maybe families that lost someone in Vietnam or Gulf War I, Gulf War II, and you're getting multi-generation people, generations of people tied together by the love of their family member who served and did everything to keep us free. How important is that camaraderie that an event like this provides?
I think it's huge. I mean, I think that's one of the biggest things about this event, and we obviously honor families and those relationships and those sacrifices every day out here. But again, it's an opportunity for us to really enforce it, to share that with the larger community versus the smaller family services that we have out here on a given day. And one of the things I say about these locations is, even though they are a veteran's headstone, a veteran's monument out there, to me, it's almost like they're a storybook that exists out there in each of those sections. And it's our obligation and those family members' obligations to tell the story of those loved ones that are no longer with us, those that paid the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom. And I know it's a challenge for people on the weekend. There's camping, there's picnics, there's, sales at their local retail areas. We're not saying don't participate in those, but pause those events for a little while and just stop and come out to something like this or in your local community. And I guess remember the fact that you're able to go to that barbecue, to have that cocktail on a beach or when you're fishing, or to enjoy that buy one, get one half price sale because of the sacrifices that the service members paid. If my grandfather was still with us today, he had a barbecue every year of Memorial Weekend. He would be the first one to say that, but he was also the first one to show up at the memorial events and be there and march in the parades and participate in those days. It was enjoying those memories, but also enjoying that celebration of the freedoms that have been extended to us because of those sacrifices. And it's a very somber occasion. We don't say Happy Memorial Day at these locations. It's a time of remembrance. It's a time of honor. It's a time of sharing those sacrifices, those individuals, those veterans that never came back to their communities, that never maybe had the opportunity to get married or raise a family. It's a time for those family members that, maybe never got to see dad or mom again, to remember it. So it is truly just a solemn, and that's again where we tell people, pause the weekend, pause the 3-day event, and take the time. It's worth it. It really is in our eyes. And obviously our mission drives that, but it really is time well spent. And I don't think too many people, if anyone ever says, I regret taking the time to do that. So.
And ultimately, we honor those who paid the ultimate sacrifice in service of their country. But I'd imagine having the families there as well, because you look at the life of a military family, those folks give up so much just to allow their loved ones to serve, and they realize the importance of doing that. Is that part of this event as well?
It is. It is. I mean, we obviously remember everyone that has been laid to rest. Obviously, a lot of what we mention is the comrades, our fallen comrades, our military brothers and sisters. But at our location, spouses are eligible to be interred here with that veteran as well. In some cases, dependent children are able to be interred at these locations. So these locations extend to those family members, and it comes from what you said. I mean, when I was in service, I married my wife after I was in for about a year, and she traveled with me. She moved when I was relocated to a new fort. She was part of that. Families experience the deployments of their loved ones, experience the celebrations and tragedies with those individuals as well. And an example that I give often when talking about it is it's almost like a service member and their family members were in a canoe together. And everybody around here understands what a canoe is like, or most people do. When that service member deploys or is taken away from the family, instead of two people paddling that canoe, one person is now paddling, and it's a little more challenging when you hit rough waters to steer a canoe or kayak yourself. And then when that service member returns, jumps back into that canoe again, gets a little tippy, you have to figure out how to do it, go from one to two again. And so the family members really sacrifice as well, in every aspect, whether we be picking up additional responsibilities, doing the parenting of two, and in many of the cases we've talked about, not having that service member come back to them, and now seeing them throughout the year in a Memorial Day event, or remembering their memory every day of their life because they paid that ultimate sacrifice. So it's very important for us to extend that to both. So when we welcome the veterans in the group and their family members. It just is one could not happen without the other.
And you mentioned part of the responsibility of everybody involved is keeping the stories of these individuals alive. I'm going to ask you probably an unfair question. Based on the families and the people that you've dealt with over the years, are there any stories that maybe really still resonate with you after all this time?
There's a few really that were kind of neat out here. We had one of them happen this past December during our wreath placement, a story of one of our fallen comrades from Vietnam, and a remembrance of Silent Night being played on a harmonica in Vietnam, and a local person from Rochester finding out that story, and prior to his passing, called him up one night prior to Christmas Eve and played Silent Night for him on a harmonica. And this last December, that individual met the family members of that fallen comrade out here and played a very silent, sober, Silent Night for that family out here at that event. So it was a way of bringing service to other people, but then that community extending that memory back to that service member out here. A lot of it is very personal out here, to us as well as the families. And I think that's one of the things we try to do. So when we talk about continuing the story, even beyond service, there's one gentleman that's buried out here. His name is Ronnie. No one knew him as Ronnie. Everybody knew him by his nickname. And when we were working with the family was concerned that no one's going to know who Ronnie was. So we actually offered up a suggestion of making sure that his nickname was annotated on the bottom of that monument and lovingly known as, so that when they came out here, they knew that was who they were looking for out there. We get a lot of stories about people saying, hey, this gentleman or this lady, has this written on their monument. Can you explain what that means? So it's our opportunity to explain that. I think that's a obligation that we have based on our role here, but also that we see families extend, or battle buddies, as we refer to them in the military, a good friend extend. One of my favorites is a gentleman from the Spring Valley area that's buried out here. He had a history of every time he would come into the service club or the Legion or the VFW, and everybody asked him how he would just rompously yell, I'm wonderful. So when we were working with the family, one of the members said, I'm going to miss him coming into the club every day and saying, wonderful. So on the bottom of his monument, it simply says wonderful. It's a message that anybody who knows him understands, but if anybody asks the story, we can share that no matter what was going on in his life, no matter what tragedy he was met with, it was always the wonderful response, that he came up with. So those little stories we just love especially on events like this.
And obviously, there's a lot more stories out there, and a lot more stories to be told this coming weekend or anytime folks visit your location. Anything else you want to pass on regarding the event on Sunday, or anything else that's going on with the Preston Veteran Cemetery?
Really, for the event, like I said, carpool if able. We set up about 300 chairs. If people want to bring a cozy camp chair with, we certainly encourage that so that they can find a seat and have guaranteed a place to sit out there. This year's been a Mother Nature up and down, a little bit of rain, a little bit of sun, a little bit of wind. So probably not a bad idea to pack along an umbrella just in case, or a poncho. Looking at it, it's looking overall like a pretty good weather event for us on Sunday. But again, to me, the big thing is whether it be the State Veteran Cemetery here that covers, Northeast Iowa, Southeast Minnesota, and Wisconsin, or whether it be your community events in Kelmer, Ocean, Cresco, Preston, Chatfield, Spring Grove, Spring Valley, attend one of them. Just take the time on Monday, if you're able, to get out there and attend them. In my mind, it's a small ask for the honor and sacrifices that our fallen comrades have extended to us. So
Couldn't have said it better, Rob. We appreciate you taking the time to tell us about everything going on at the Veteran Cemetery and the event coming up on Sunday. More importantly, we thank you for what you do to help the families of those that have
Sure.
given everything so we can have 3-day weekends like this. Always appreciate talking to you, and let's enjoy and honor the weekend and honor those that allow us to do what we're doing.
Very good. And it's always a pleasure to talk to you, Darren. Always appreciate it.
Rob Gross from the Minnesota State Veterans Cemetery, the Memorial Day event coming up on Sunday. Music begins at 1:30 and the program to begin at 2. And thank you to this morning's guest, Decorah School Superintendent Tim Cronin and Rob Gross from the Preston Veterans Cemetery. And Rob and his staff will put on their Memorial Day event coming up this weekend, Sunday at 2 p.m. And a reminder, we always put these shows on YouTube for you. We realize you're busy, a lot of things going on. Summer's coming, kids getting out of school. Can't always be near a radio or a smart speaker at 9 o'clock on a Thursday morning. We want to bring these interviews to you on your schedule. Head to YouTube. 5-23 Our Town program is a great way to get it. We also put the audio version up of this program on our SoundCloud page, which you can get on all of our LA Communications radio station websites. We also link the YouTube link to on all of our Facebook pages. It's our way to meet you where you are and to serve our community to the best of our ability here at LA Communications. Thanks to our guests, thanks to our sponsor, Decorah Bank and Trust, And we thank you, that's right, you, for tuning in, for logging on, or for watching Our Town on 94.9 and 99.1 The River.